Hello every pony and welcome to Crisis Equestria Chapter 9. Last time, I think they escaped the city, which was good. There was fighting and physics were broken, and I think there was a bit of decapitation in there somewhere. But anyway, enough of that. So let's get started. Crisis Equestria Chapter 9. Introductions. Silvertongue maintained a firm, rigid glare as he looked in the mirror. At first, he was genuinely surprised, almost pleased. Dr. Blutsauger had done a fantastic job of repairing the damage to the skin and coat around his eye, and across most of the left side of his face and muzzle. Silvertongue, in a rare moment of glee, had actually praised the good doctor, and praises were not anything Silvertongue was known to throw around. There weren't any scars or bruises left at all, and barring one minor detail, it was almost as if the damage had never been done. But that was where the rage began to settle in. His face, his perfect face, it was no longer so. Now there was a blemish, one that could not be concealed or mended to remind him of his own mild recklessness. A flaw, tarnishing what was once flawless. Where his eye had once been, now there was nothing but darkness. The socket was not empty, but actually filled with a void of black ethereal stuff. Silvertongue could feel a powerful, magical aura emanating from it. The pulse of a source of magic he was not intimately familiar with, touching him and writhing through him. Only a tiny speck of gold prevented the black from being totally all-consuming, and what piqued Silvertongue's fascination the most was that the little speck seemed to function as though it were his own pupil, with the blackness as his eye. Where he looked, it moved, and he could see clearly from it as though it had always been his. More clearly than even his original eye had ever been able to see. Yet, what was most disturbing was the strange feeling of the magic within it. It was powerful, he was certain of that. And it was something altogether alien to him. He knew that Twilight Sparkle's clone, who was far below him in the tower now recovering, wielded the same kind of magical aura. The eye seemed to react to the being in her presence. He knew it was potent, but he knew not what it was. It was enigmatic, to say the least. And the more he probed his own magics around to try and study it, the more it seemed to react to him, pulse its energy through him again. In time, he assured himself, he would learn to zap into it, to control it. A buzz from his intercom dashed those thoughts aside. Right on schedule, he mused to himself. He pressed a button on the intercom, and a familiar mare's voice rang through on the other end. "Milord, sir?" Commander Jetstream is here to deliver his report on the gate incident. "Thank you, Shroud. Send him in." The door to Silvertongue's office slid open, and a slightly worn but still alert Jetstream entered. He quickly bowed in respect to Silvertongue, who merely stared at him with a firm, hard seriousness. Jetstream's nervousness was palpable when he spoke. "Milord?" "Commander," he coldly replied. "I understand you were here to deliver the report on how the assignment you were tasked with went. If I may say so, Jetstream, you've seen better days." Jetstream gulped, knowing full well what was coming next. "Now, you already know that my sources of information are speedy and accurate, so I'm assuming you also know what I am already aware of, your failure." "Milord, I can explain—" "You can make excuses, you mean. Save them. I have no concern for how you failed, only that you did. I can put the pieces together pretty well myself with this." His horn glowed and brought over a small portfolio, which he opened and began to read from. "According to the gate task force report, the gate suffered massive technical difficulties this morning. First, the security stations improperly authorized 9 ponies using falsified passports. Luckily, then it would seem that some pony was able to learn about that, Jetstream nodded nervously. He knew fully well that said some pony was dead because of a failure like this. When the error was discovered, Silvertongue continued, the gate was immediately sealed and a special task unit was sent out to apprehend the ponies in question. The unit's assigned leader never arrived at the scene, as he had been replaced by one Commander Jetstream. The task force made note here that it seemed very suspicious that the Special Ops officer was interested in a group of unauthorized ponies, none of whom were particularly remarkable according to their records. He briefly shut the portfolio. And I've lost my place because the scrolling on my laptop's terrible. Hang on a sec. Right. He briefly shut the portfolio. Really now, Jetstream, have I not made myself clearer about subtlety? This kind of sloppiness is quite bothersome. I had a little choice, my lord. You made it clear that time was of the essence, Jetstream said carefully. The idiot was a real rules jockey, claimed it was his unit fair and square. I had to be forceful, stuff him away somewhere until I got my job done. You know how the NPAF is. They think they own the city. Quiet. Oh, no, it's not quiet. Quite. Silvertongue frowned. He reopened the portfolio. The unauthorized ponies were confronted by Commander Jetstream's units, and subsequently engaged by them in turn. Some of the scuffle was caught by security cameras, but a technical issue caused them to malfunction as well. During the altercation, 2 of the ponies hacked into the gate's security system. Now, which 2 were they? The green one and the purple one, both unicorns. Silvertongue's eyebrow twitched. The blasted chronomancer again. I really am beginning to tire of her. A pity. Shadowstep did not... No matter. At any rate, these 2 ponies managed to disable the gate's anti-magic field, and then rip the gate open by force. Now that I find fascinating. How did they manage that? Each gate section weighs over several hundred tons. It was all 3 unicorns, sir, Jetstream added. They combined their magic somehow. I don't know... I didn't know unicorns could do that, or I would have focused my attention on them sooner. It is a rather advanced spell, yes, but certainly not out of the limits of a unicorn with the drive and talent to learn, which I'm sad to say is a dismally precious few. That is rather interesting to learn. However, I shall keep it in mind for future reference. If they already know how to do it, then perhaps... Silvertongue reopened the portfolio again. After breaking apart the gate, the 9 ponies fled into the wastelands and engaged and destroyed nearly 24 AMP troopers sent after them in the process, but avoided any lethality against non-mechanical troops that also engaged them. Now, does that all sound about accurate? Yes, my lord, but... Hang on. Okay. I assigned you a very simple task, Jetstream. At least, I thought it was simple. But it is slowly becoming clear to me that anything involving these particular ponies is far from being simple. So here we are, you on your knees asking for a chance to excuse yourself from responsibility, because you have failed. Spectacularly failed, my boy. Please, my lord, give me a second chance. Jetstream. Jetstream. How long have you been directly in my employ? 13 years? In that time you have never once failed me, never once disappointed me. Until today. Now, Shadowstep, you remember him, don't you? Jetstream nodded warily. I gave him a second chance. He had only been in my employ for 6 years. He squandered it, to be sure, but he got one all the same. Do you know why? He earned it, despite his failure. He did still manage to come through on a great deal of things that made up for some slight complications. You, my boy, you have not earned that privilege. Silvertongue's horn glowed and Jetstream almost instantly grabbed his own neck. A strong force was crushing at him, lifting him into the air. He suddenly turned into Darth Vader. He choked. Please, my lord, Your failure, Jetstream, has forced me to accelerate my plans much more quickly than I desired. Your failure has caused damage which cannot be easily repaired, and you have absolutely nothing positive to show for it. No sort of bandage to place over this great gaping wound of incompetence that you have caused. I do not tolerate such failures, Jetstream. I erase them. I should kill you right now. He released him. Jetstream gulped in air like a freshly caught fish. Silvertongue's mouth curled into a subtle, almost cocky smile. But I won't. No. I have a better use for you. Jetstream was more perplexed than anything. Silvertongue had decided to give him an opportunity to redeem himself, to earn the second chance he desired. But that was not what really bothered him. No, it was the conditions of this second chance that were strange. A weapons test. Silvertongue had called it. And that eccentric Dr. Bloodsauger had been there too. Jetstream figured the fool had attempted another genetic experiment. He was always tinkering with that kind of thing, and Jetstream was always rather put off by it. He wasn't even sure that he was supposed to be doing. He wasn't even sure what he was supposed to be doing, besides apparently being nothing more than a guinea pig for whatever fool experiment the doctor had conducted. He'd been corralled in this little testing arena, with over 36 AMP troopers to command, and told his opponents, for lack of a better term, would be set loose against him once at a time. One? Against some 40 troopers? Bloodsauger, and likely Silvertongue as well, must have been awfully confident in his new toys. He'd even gone as far as boasting that, should Jetstream run out of troopers to use, he'd be given more. Jetstream was not at all concerned. Bloodsauger had always been a pompous ass and a supreme brown-noser. He'd put him in his place to earn his redemption. He wouldn't even need to use his full force here. The thick iron gate on the opposite side of the arena creaked open. Jetstream was not expecting the first of the weapons to be a perfectly normal-looking mare. She was slightly bigger than the average female Pegasus, to be sure, but there didn't seem to be anything off-putting about her. Her coat was a very drab shade of blue-grey. Her mane a strange mix of turquoise and fuchsia. Something like that is. Worn in a wild and unkempt style that's some sort of glam rocker. She was, to his surprise, nude, excepting a set of metal boot-like things she wore on each hoof. Her cutie mark, a storm cloud with a bright thin streak of golden lightning through it. Jetstream was bothered by one thing in particular, though. Her eyes. They seemed familiar to him. He knew he'd seen some pony with those exact eyes before. Whoever she wasn't moving. She really wasn't doing much of anything. Just staring, perfectly calm. Not looking at all like she was prepared to fight or whatever it was she was supposed to do. Jetstream was confused. What was she waiting for? He decided to make the first move instead. Putting his hoof to his temple, he clicked a few buttons on the command visor he'd been provided. Oh god, the yawning's back. It was another thing that piqued his interest, since command visors were typically only utilised in high-risk skirmishes to keep the CO out of harm's way. Typically, the CO would need to remain in a relative proximity to his troops, as orders were delivered orally. Did they really think this single mare, or any other weapons, warranted that kind of threat? 3 of the AMP troopers moved in on her at his command, just a scouting maneuver, to gauge the combat level of his target. She remained still, even as the troopers activated their static charged hoof guards. He'd been given permission to use 100% lethal force, so he figured he may as well take advantage of it. Each trooper, charged with enough electricity to kill a pony 4 times over, leapt into action. She flicked her wings. Without warning, the 3 mechanical ponies suddenly slowed to a crawl, as if struggling against their own weight. Impossible. That was the only word Jetstream could think of to describe what he was seeing. A Pegasus pony, using what could only possibly be unicorn magic. Simply impossible. There wasn't even a glow around his troops, nor around whatever part of her body was channeling the magic. It didn't add up. What sort of magic was this? What sorcery is this? Pegasus magic? If that was what she was using, he had no visual clues except in the faster flyers who left trails of magic behind them. This pony wasn't even moving, and there seemed to be magic radiating from her. The forefront soldier took another slow step forward. Its legs snapped apart and it crumbled in a heap, breaking to pieces. Pieces? I'm supposed to say pieces. Breaking to pieces as it hit the floor. It was as if the thing's legs suddenly couldn't support its weight. The others followed suit and stumbled and shattered all the same. 3 troopers down, and the target hardly even put up any visible effort into it. It was her overly calm demeanour that made Jetstream angry. She didn't look bored, per se. She looked determined, focused. Like this was literally an actual test for her that she was looking to pass. Well, Jetstream thought, if it was his job to test her, a test is what she would get. Tapping his temple again, he issued orders for a full 10 soldiers to assault her. 4 from the front, 3 from either flank, predictably. Predictably, she took to the air almost purposefully slow, and predictably, she flew to a great height, far out of reach of any earth pony. Jetstream gave a cocky smirk to no pony but himself. Typical Pegasus tactics. They were so predictable. Another tap of his temple, and his troopers armed their shoulder-mounted fletchet launchers, and fired. Not a single one reached the target. As they fired, the mare flicked her wings again, and the projectile sharply curved back towards the ground and fell harmlessly, as if they hadn't been fired with enough force to reach that high. Then she took the offensive. Flicking her wings once more, she tucked them in against her sight and dove fast at the center group. Jetstream's jaw dropped when she slammed her hoofs into the ground. She hit with enough force to dent the metal floor, sending all 3 sets of soldiers flying back. A shockwave was enough to make him and some of the other soldiers stumble. Jetstream never claimed to be a physicist, but he was fairly sure what he'd just seen was physically impossible, even for the most accomplished of magicians. Sure, it wasn't hard to guess that she hadn't been injured by the fall due to those shoes she was wearing. They must have been magically enchanted, nothing special. But for her to hit with that much impact, she'd need to weigh a ridiculous amount compared to the average pony. The average Pegasus especially. She made to take to the air again, when her voice cracked over the speaker system. It was Silvertongue's. "That's enough for now, my dear. I've seen what I needed to see." The mare nodded, then gave Jetstream a look that made him feel very small. She knew she'd made his soldiers look like toys, and treated them as such. He knew it too, and he inwardly began to panic. Would this affect his odds at being given a second chance? He swore right then and there, with some hard-to-find resolve that the next opponent he faced would not do the same. As the first mare started to leave, the next pony, another Pegasus mare, coloured a bright candy apple red, entered the arena. She was more irregular sized than the former, built with more lean muscle than bulk. Jetstream amused himself by looking at her mane and tail. They resembled a skunk, a white streak against jet black. She kept it relatively short in front and back. He thought she looked rather butch, more so than the other mare that from the morning. What was her name again? Rainbow Dash? A flame cutie mark adorned her flank, with the bat's wings attached. Jetstream again amused himself at her expense. Her mark looked more like a tattoo than anything else. She too wore metallic horseshoes, but only on her forelegs, and they looked much less elaborate. And yet, despite all her unmare-like qualities, her eyes again seemed so familiar, and so feminine and kind, very much unlike how the rest of her appeared to be. The former mare began to pass her by, but stopped for a moment. Best of luck to you, I suppose. The red mare didn't look at her as she snapped, "Get away from me! I don't need your loserness rubbing off and ruining my run." Unfazed, the former gave a light shrug and went on her way. Jetstream shifted in place for a moment, more cautious than before. He was down 7 troopers, with 6 more in less than ideal conditions, and he'd only faced 1 pony. He shook the thought away. No, there was nothing to worry about. He'd gone cocky, made a blunder in his tactics. He'd handle this one just fine. She made the first move. Taking to the air, she raced right into the heart of the formation, very loud, very aggressive. Jetstream remained calm. This was the typical combat tactic for most non-unicorn ponies. Nothing special. The AMP units were built to take this kind of punishment. They had no trouble fighting blow for blow with her. Jetstream smirked with confidence. This mare clearly didn't have the same kind of strange powers that the other had. Why Bloodsorger would empower one mare but not another was perplexing. But it would be his own folly. The red mare seemed to realise she'd made a mistake in charging in, and pulled out, looping high into the air. Jetstream smiled again, typical Pegasus tactics. He'd make up for his previous failures. His troopers took aim with their fletchet launchers. Then she swept low to the ground and snapped her metal-clad hooves against the steel floor. There was a spark, and to Jetstream's surprise, there followed a flame. The red mare kept the flame in hoof, then fired it forward like a bullet towards one of the troopers. The little fireball exploded spectacularly, sending chunks of shrapnel flying every which way. Jetstream, in shock, stumbled back a little and fell on his backside. Things were not looking good at all. Another fireball blew apart another soldier, and the mare flew through the explosion undeterred. Seemingly relishing the feeling of the inferno around her, cackling all the way. Jetstream quickly shook himself straight, and his troopers locked onto their target. They fired. The mare was an agile flyer, and nimbly avoided nearly all of the salvo. A few shots came too close, and she did not look at all happy about it. She struck up another pair of flames and smashed them together to create a great billowing sphere of fire. She lobbed it into the centre of the largest cluster of troopers she could find. It took Jetstream a few seconds to regain his hearing. A towering plume of smouldering fire and smoke was all that remained of what was, according to his readout, 13 troopers. The mare stood with her back to the blaze, looking quite pleased with herself. The speakers cracked on. "A good show! Very impressive. That'll be all, my dear. Hell yeah, it was impressive, Pops. Booyah, you punk. She addressed Jetstream. I just took your flank to school. What are you gonna do about it? Jetstream sneered but stayed quiet. Yeah, that's what I thought. Smell you later, loser. If you're still alive, that is. Heh. That was a terribly timed heh. The mare strutted her way out of the arena, past the next mare that was entering. Were they all going to be mares? Jetstream was a little perturbed by the thought. Here he was, one of the most decorated soldiers in the NPAF, getting completely and embarrassingly shown up by a gaggle of mares. If any of his comrades in the soldiery found out, he'd be laughed right back to the boot camp. The next mare was, at last, not a Pegasus. Instead, this one was a unicorn. Charcoal black, and just as filthy. Jetstream never considered himself an expert on beauty any more than he was on physics, but he had an eye for mares. That much was certain. Her coat looked dirty, and her mane and tail were messy. And she looked like she'd tried to do her own dye job and accidentally used yellow paint instead of blonde dye. A true fashion disaster, as the mares in the streets of the inner districts would say. A trio of coals were a cutie mark. At least he noticed she seemed to keep her eyelashes in good condition. Break a leg, the red one smirked in an obviously fake sing-song tone. The unicorn made to reply, but the Pegasus interrupted. No, really, break a leg. That'd be hilarious. The unicorn huffed. Well, that's, totally uncool. I'm so gonna get you back for that. The Pegasus laughed. Haha, right. Whatever, lose. The unicorn reached out a hoof and jabbed it into the red mare's midsection. She yelped in what sounded like severe pain, and jumped away as if she'd been touched by something wholly unpleasant. The unicorn was left in a brief red glow, but it slowly dissipated. Don't you ever touch me, the red one snarled. You touch me again, and you're a dead mare, you got that? Hey, I'm fucking talking to you, punk. Yeah, whatever, the unicorn said distractedly. The Pegasus sneered and made to say something, but decided against it and stormed off in a huff. The unicorn lazily stepped forward and waited for Jetstream's trooper supply to be reinforced. He's already lost more than half his initial platoon, and he'd only faced 2 ponies. Jetstream took stock of his own resolve yet again, as he was beginning to worry about his ability to handle all this. What exactly had he been thrown into? And what were these weapons being used for? Shaking his doubts away, he tapped his temple again and elected to surround the unicorn, using 20 of his troopers to do so. His tactics would be sound, vicious, and completely infallible. He regretted now treating his former 2 opponents with fairness and dignity, when they were clearly built for a greater challenge. She wouldn't be able to fly away like the 2 Pegasi did, and she was hideously outnumbered. She didn't look at all worried, and got herself ready quickly, bracing her hooves and taking up position near the still smouldering blaze the former mare had left. Let's see, how did she do this again? She asked herself, pointing her hoof at one of the lingering nearby flames. Jetstream was astonished to see her begin to manipulate the fire. A large swath of flames snaked its way through the air and crashed down on one of his troopers. Her horn glowed and the fire burst outwards to engulf 2 more nearby soldiers. Jetstream panicked and ordered the troops to attack. Hey, I'm busy here, she complained, seemingly more bothered that her focus had been interrupted than her life being threatened. She used her magic to shield herself from them, backing away from the circle, and cut off from her source of fire. Jetstream was catching on quickly, and figured if Bloodsaga was dumb enough to give 2 consecutive weapons the same capabilities, he'd capitalise on the mistake. Whatever, I was like getting so bored. Fire is stupid anyway. Her body glowed red for a brief moment again. Then her horn followed suit, grabbing one of the troopers and bringing it over to herself. You know, I totally bet one of these fancy techno-magic things is much better. She jabbed her hoof into its face, and it shuddered and sparked, as if it had been struck by an electric shock, dropping to the floor. The unicorn's body glowed a dull yellow for a second. She smirked and delivered a defensive blow to another trooper that leapt at her. Like the other one, it seemed to have been struck by a fierce electric shock. This one was more powerful. So much more, in fact, that its body shattered apart at the touch. Jetstream swore silently, confused at how the mare had suddenly gone from pyrotechnics to manipulating electricity. He lost three more soldiers before Silvertongue's voice cracked over the speakers again. "Very well done. A fine display, my dear. That will be all." She flicked her messy mane a little and shrugged. I was bored of this too. I so need to find some pony with something totally better than this junk. She began to walk out of the arena and past the next mare that was entering. Jetstream's jaw dropped, and he was beset upon by a great deal of confusion. He knew he'd seen her escape with the others. It didn't add up. It didn't add up at all. How had Silvertongue managed to capture one of the ponies from this morning? It wasn't mentioned in the report, and yet here he was, looking right at a very similar pink earth pony. He was certain it was her. Her coat and mane were a little duller in hue, and she wore her mane and tail straight, but that was definitely her. No, it couldn't be, Jetstream thought. Her key mark was different. The one from this morning had a tree of party balloons. This one had what looked like a cupcake. Very strange. So, I guess I should wish you best luck too, the unicorn babbled as she walked by. Hoof shake on it? The pink earth pony kept her very forward gaze and ignored her. The unicorn shrugged. Whatever. If you're gonna, be rude about it, you can, bite me. Is that an invitation? The pink pony drooled. Ew, no, the unicorn replied. The unicorn left, and the earth pony remained. Jetstream decided this time to completely throw any sense of fairness out the window. Silvertongue had instructed him to treat this entire thing as a training exercise, but now he was certain he was being treated fairly. Oh, he wasn't being treated fairly. He'd expected ponies that were perhaps super strong or lightning quick, something he could deal with, not ponies that could shoot fireballs and the like. He regretted being cocky from the beginning, but no matter, he'd even the odds and bring more force into the field. Since several of his troopers still had their Fletcher launchers armed, he ordered them to fire on her immediately. He fought hard to keep a straight face, to avoid cheering in triumph as she was unable to avoid the entire salvo. The last two rounds grazed her, and she tripped and fell in a slightly bloody heap. She struggled to rise to her hoofs, and she smirked as he sent in a few troops to deliver the final blow, up close and personal. And to his surprise and horror, she not only managed to stand up, but managed to fight back. Not only was she still alive, how that was possible escaped him, since he was certain an average pony wouldn't have gotten up. But it was how she fought back that was truly frightened him. She was bleeding rather profusely, and in a sight that he was sure was medically impossible, her blood was moving entirely on its own, and with purely hostile intentions. A thick stream from the wound on her midsection lashed out and grabbed the face of one of the troopers, and with what he knew had to be a great deal of force, he simply squeezed and squeezed until its head popped and crumbled in its grip. It lashed out again, taking on a thinner, more blade-like shape, and slashed through the midsection of another soldier until it was cleanly sliced in half. The third attempted to pounce on her, but the blood twisted up to meet it. It formed the shape of a spike, and the trooper helplessly impaled itself through the neck. She tossed it haphazardly aside. She took a few steps forward towards the rest of the troops, and to his surprise, the pool of blood she had left began to converge on her. It snaked its way back into the wounds it had originally bled from, and said wounds repaired themselves quickly and seamlessly. Only a few wounds stayed untouched, and from this more blood seemed to pour, flailing around her like tendrils of some horrid beast he'd only seen in nightmares. Her murderous smile wasn't helping to ease his woes, either. She continued to walk rather menacingly towards Jetstream, and in a panic, he worried that she was coming right after him rather than the expendable troops. He wasn't sure how he knew it, but he was certain it was the hungry look in her eyes. He'd met Shadowstep before, and he knew that look all too well. She was out for blood, and her robotic components didn't quite meet that criteria. He stepped backwards instinctively, but she seemed to be moving closer. "You smell nice," her voice came from behind him. "I wonder what you taste like." "Ah!" He leapt into the air a little and turned around, but she wasn't there. He seemed nervous. He turned back to the rest of the field. She was back where she'd been before. "Maybe you should take a rest." One of her tendrils lashed out and came towards his face. He flinched away in fear. "That will be all, my dear," Silvertongue's voice called over the speakers. Jetstream gulped, and the tendrils were mere inches away, and she took a few steps forward towards him. Silvertongue's voice crackled again. "I said that will be all. You can stop frightening the whelp." The look of bloodlust vanished in an instant, and she once again appeared calm and collected as before. She calmly walked her way to the exit, where the fifth mare was already waiting. Said mare had the most serious, determined look he'd seen yet. She was a very dark, almost plum-like shade of violet, a unicorn too, as told by the horn poking out of her bouncy curly mane. Most of the mane was a bubblegum pink with a lilac highlights. Her cutie mark seemed oddly familiar, almost matching the emblem of the Pandemonium flag. Her sword was silver, and the other shape was a crescent, not a disc, but golden all the same. Now her eyes, Jetstream knew he had seen before. He saw the exact spark of determination and confidence, that focus in the eyes of the accursed unicorn that had started off his morning on such a sour note, twilight sparkle. The pink mare did not verbally greet the newcomer, merely gave a respectful nod. It was given a half-hearted return. The unicorn stepped forward, and Jetstream grit his teeth. One more chance. He knew he would only have this one more chance. He was going to throw everything he had into this, no holding back, no fair play. His troops moved under his command, surrounding her and arming themselves. She would not beat him, he thought. She could not beat him. He could see the cocky smirk on her face from here. "Is this really all you've got, little featherbrain? If you insist on playing a fool's game, I'll just have to treat you as such." She sneered at the salt being rubbed into his wounded pride. "Oh dear, did that make you upset? Your ego should be the last thing on your mind. Or am I wrong? Come on then. If you've got something to prove, show me what you've got." Jetstream grit his teeth harder and ordered the attack. A full half of his troops fired fletchet rounds. The others charged in for a full melee combat. There were too many, he knew it. Only 2 of his troops remained at his side, just in case he needed a last wave, or a final line of defence. No, he shook those thoughts away. His thoughts would end this miserable streak of losses, put him back in Silvertongue's favour. There would be no what if. It was going to work. No, Pony, not even the strongest unicorns he knew could stand up to this sort of assault. His mouth drooped slowly from a confident, aggravated grin into a frown that expressed so much disbelief and disappointment that he could physically taste the sorrow and dismay in the air. Her horn glowed as bright as a star, and in a sight he was sure he was imagining, more so than the unbelievable powers of the other 4 ponies he'd seen, she was managing to make his entire platoon look like playthings. As his frontline soldiers approached, they were suddenly lifted into the air. A few of them flailed around helplessly, while others attempted to lock on with their own flatcher launchers. The rounds that had been fired by the rear line all dangled in the air, several feet away from their target. She twirled her collection of machines and bullets around, dancing them through the air. She fired the salvo of rounds herself, ripping apart the mechanical ponies like tissue paper. The second line reloaded and fired again. She used the remaining troops she still held as shields, sweeping them through the line of fire with astounding speed. A full half of his platoon, gone, torn to shreds and lying in assorted piles of scrap metal and wires upon the floor surrounding her. With another spark of her horn, she blew them away from her in a show of force. He ordered his troops to fire in a third round. He knew the gesture was futile. What else could he do? She didn't bother showing off her levitation and velocity magic this time, firing up a shield instead and causing hundreds of needle-sharp bullets to ricochet around the room. Some of the troopers were struck and mangled. Jetstream had to duck to avoid a few himself. And to those that were not destroyed by that display, she elected for other solutions. One she lifted into the air with magic and then crushed, dropping its broken body to the floor like a broken doll. Another she flung so high up into the air that it smashed against the ceiling several dozen yards above. 2 more she smashed into one another, their static charged hoofs shocking each other into pieces. To the last of his front line, she seemed to cast a teleportation spell, and it vanished into thin air. He never saw that one again. And all this was done at once. He knew simultaneous spellcasting was possible, but limited, difficult and exhausting. She had just torn through most of his forces, technically all of his forces, since he could consider his 2 remaining troops to be of no worth now. In mere seconds, using some very complicated magic, and not looking at all worse for wear from it, she looked uninterested if anything. "So dull," she groaned. "I thought you were going to give me some modicum of challenge. But here, I see you've done nothing to provide me with a minor distraction. Come now, little featherbrain. Don't you have anything more to test my might?" Her arrogance was infuriating. He tapped his visor again and signalled for the additional reinforcements. She laughed as he saw the heavy iron gateway from which his troops would begin to open. "Ha! I certainly hope you've summoned more than a few piddling machines to your aid, but I do know that is unlikely. A shame. I shall just have to annihilate them as the same I did to your others." A stream of soldiers came from the gate, and her horn began to glow. As soon as the last one was almost out, she slammed the door closed on top of it, costing him 1 trooper already. Ripping the door off its rails, she used it as a weapon against the other troops, smashing them and batting them away as they were nothing more than playthings. His jaw remained dropped. That door weighed several tons, built to keep extremely strong, ferocious beasts locked in before they were let loose in this old arena. It was designed to hold a gargantuan patriarch, a creature stronger than 20 ponies and just as big. A single unicorn could never hope to lift such a thing. She swept it around as if it weighed nothing at all. Mechanical parts scattered and flew about as the massive objects smashed and battered, crushed, slammed and pummeled the troopers. Jetstream frantically tried to keep his units spread out, and while a few had the opportunity to fire bursts at her, she merely teleported herself out of harm's way. Jetstream slammed her hoof to the floor in frustration. As the last of his new set of reinforcements had squashed beneath her new weapon, she merely laughed and flung said weapon aside like a piece of old wood. It embedded itself in the steel wall of the arena, creating a dent that took up a good half of the set of some 50 by 50 foot structure. He winced in pain as with a glance. Her horn glowed and his visor shattered. He was down to 2 soldiers now, though he really knew he was reliably down to 1. One of these 2 was having some malfunction and wasn't showing properly on the visor readout anyway. She chuckled lightly as he pointed a shaking hoof at her, and he gave them a command. "Go! Take her down!" "Ah, you poor, pitiful, predictable, pathetic peon. You still think you have a chance against me? That you ever had a chance? You are beneath me. You are dirt. No lower than dirt. You and your miserable little machines are but specks of insignificance compared to the wonder and might that I wield." She turned to one of the troopers, and her horn sparked up again. It was lifted into the air, and he watched in shock as she started to physically take the thing apart like one would to a toaster oven that wasn't working properly. Every single gear, screw, nut and bolt, component, band, motor, battery, wire, camera, chip, card and cable was jettisoned outward and spread out into the air before him so that he could see every single piece of machinery that went into making one of these AMP units. "Such a mundane little thing, isn't it?" she said thoughtfully. "So much heart and soul and effort go into this one little piece of machinery." She referred to the small component that she'd removed from its head, no bigger than an orange. It was the brain of the machine. She snapped it in half, and yet it's so fragile, like you. She added with a smirk, weak and helpless against the power of a superior pony. "My test against you was over before it began." Jetstream sneered. She laughed again. "I suppose I should end all this charade and finish off the test then. You're all alone now." You're forgetting my last trooper," Jetstream gulped. "I haven't heard my lord call you off yet." "Oh, silly me, I forgot," she mocked. "I suppose he's waiting for your other opponent to finish her test as well. Go on, sis, get it over with." "What the hey he started. He was interrupted when he got bucked hard in the face by his lone remaining trooper. He fell to the ground, and he looked up in surprise and rage. How dare he be given a malfunctioning trooper, and the one with shortened targeting chip as well? To his surprise, the soldier's mechanical features began to dissolve away, and slowly what was once a machine turned into the form of a living, breathing pony. A blue earth pony mare with a bright red mane that she kept tied back in a neat little white bandana. Her coat was shiny, and her mane and tail were kept extremely neat and tidy. And she had 3 little oranges for a cutie mark. "Have you had enough fun pulling your featherbrain's chain, the unicorn asked. She was not quite as condescending towards her as she subtly seemed to be with the pink pony, and nowhere near as insulting as she was towards Jetstream. There was almost a tone of mutual respect there. "Oh God. Mais oui, I have had a wonderful time sitting and waiting for you all to finish." She spoke with a mockingly hurt tone. "You know as well as I do that the doctor wanted us to go alphabetically. I only wish I had the same talents as all of you have, so I had to do what I do best." "Hide in a corner," the unicorn joked. "Under cover work," the earth pony huffed. "You cannot expect me to have to go vis-a-vis with these girlish things. If you two ladies are quite done, Silvertongue's voice cracked over the speakers, I do believe our testing process is complete. I'll be down shortly to meet with you and the others, and to deliver your results. Excellent, the unicorn smirked. I do not expect anything less than the highest score. Don't feel too bad I beat you now. If your score and trumping mine worried moi, I should say I would be scared of most everything. The Earth Pony replied. Jetstream grumbled as he moved to the side. They seemed to be completely ignoring his presence. Perhaps that was for the best, he thought. Then they couldn't ridicule. Hey, loser! Called the familiar voice of the red Pegasus. You just got your flank so royally handed to you. Haha. I'm going to be surprised if Pops doesn't just rip your wings off and push you off the top floor. So much for being ignored, Jetstream sighed to himself. I, totally deserve the best score, boss, the black unicorn gushed as she stepped into the arena as well. She'd been addressing the purple unicorn. I mean, yeah, your little display was, impressive and all, but I am so much more deserving. Mais oui, such a stupendous display of yours was ma compine. The Blue Earth Pony said with completely sincere insincerity. The unicorn gave a happy squeal, leapt over to the Blue Pony and gave her a crushing hug. Aha! There you are! I was so totally worried when I didn't see you in the prep room. I'm never letting you out of my sight again, precious. C'est bon. The Earth Pony fake smiled as the unicorn stroked her mane lovingly. I'm so happy I could puke. Merde alors. Oh, I love it when you talk all fancy, the black unicorn sighed. The red Pegasus made a mocking puke gesture behind her back. The blue-grey Pegasus slowly walked into the arena as well, and elected to stay quiet and not join her comrades. Nobody seemed to notice or really care. The pink Earth Pony, on the other hand, strut right over to the group. Other than the purple unicorn, the others seemed to take a very subtle, very small step away from her. Enough that she wouldn't notice, they apparently hoped. A large clang from the opposite side of the arena alerted all the ponies present. The 6 mares all seemed to perk up as the door opened and Silvertongue passed through, making a brisk pace to the centre of the arena floor. Dr. Blutzel closed behind him with a data pad hovering nearby. The mares quickly lined up as Silvertongue approached, though a few of them seemed to be fighting for positions. Ladies, calm yourselves, he said sternly. They all obeyed virtually instantly, which seemed to please him. A very good display, all of you. I am glad to see the accident has not diminished any of your powers. Now then, I suppose you're all excited to learn how well you did, They all nodded enthusiastically, save the purple unicorn who bore a cocksure grin. Silvertongue walked over to the first pony in line, the Blue Earth Pony, who looked positively pleased. First, Colatio. You scored a 96. I would have scored you higher, but you passed on many opportunities to strike against your target earlier in the test. Still, a fine showing of your capabilities. Merci, Papa, she smiled. Silvertongue stepped over to the blue-grey Pegasus. She stood at a rigid attention. Grayscale force, 99. Fine display, my dear. A shame I did not see how well you could manipulate gravity in the other direction. Increasing weight, my dear, is merely one way to do it. Keep that in mind. She nodded low. I deserve as much, I guess. My thanks, Father. Next to the red Pegasus. Next to the red Pegasus, Jetstream was put off by her almost ecstatic smile. To you, Havoc Wing. 84 points, Silvertongue says firmly. Her smile drained away rather quickly. You elected to utilize lowbrow fighting tactics against a target specifically designed to combat such tactics, accomplishing nothing in your first few moments of the test, while your remaining test time was quite miraculous compared to some of your sisters. You need to learn to think, analyze your foe before rushing in hoofs first. Yeah, Pops, I get it, she said, disappointed. The black unicorn snickered lightly, and she shot her a very fierce glare. Silvertongue came to the next aforementioned black unicorn. Insipid? 95 points. But Daddy, she whined, I want a higher score, please. Silvertongue blinked and smirked. 96 points, then. Havoc Wing sneered in Insipid's direction. Your display of using the capabilities of other ponies, specifically your sisters, was impressive. I was unaware that you could drain the power from a techno-magic construct as well. Most impressive indeed. Your standard magic has much more room for improvement, though. Those barrier spells were regrettably very sloppy. Like, okay, Daddy, you got it, she snickered, giving a look over to the Blue Earth pony, a somewhat disturbingly adoring look as if Jetstream's opinion mattered any. She said, Oh, Curatio, I got the same score as you. Très bon, good for you, Curatio slightly smiled back. I am really proud. Yay. Silvertongue ignored the bant between the two, and moved along to the pink earth pony. She kept a rather serious look on her face, but Jetstream couldn't help but notice her glance in his direction every other second. The same damn hungry look in her eyes. To you, Red Velvet, 98 points. Your powers make me a mite skeptical as to how they truly benefit you. If you could find a way to use your powers without suffering such grievous injuries, perhaps you'd be much more powerful than you already are. Thank you, Father, she said in a rather monotone voice. As Silvertongue walked away, Jetstream fought to keep a terrified squeak to himself. That smile she had as she looked at him again made his bones feel cold, really cold. And last but not least, to you, the youngest of you 6 wonderful little ponies. Silvertongue smiled as he came to the purple unicorn. She maintained her rather haughty air, as well, and was well aware of the incoming praise. Starlight Shadow, a perfect score, 100 points. You suffered no damage, destroyed your opponent's entire regiment, and displayed incredible magical strength. The source of your powers still eludes me. Silvertongue's golden pupil pulsed once, growing just slightly larger for a second as he thought about her display. But it is impressive nonetheless. A shame you must leave so soon. As if I could have scored anything else, she said half dismissively. Thank you, Father. You 6, Silvertongue continued, addressing them all now, are my most precious possessions, and while it pains me to see you go, I know I must allow you to once again leave the safety of my tower. The crimes against you committed by these 6 mares, and Silvertongue motioned for Bloodsilver to activate his device. A holographic projection of the 6 mares Jetstream recognized from that morning appeared, need to be punished. The 6 mares present all looked with rather grim disdain at the 6 images of the other 6. Jetstream had never seen such anger before. You have all recovered from your accident in such a short time, and it is time you got your just deserved revenge. Silvertongue said firmly, but I do not want you to kill them. Remember that. Remember your duty, my dears. Even you are not exempt from the same rules that I apply to all those who work for me. I do not tolerate failure. Jetstream gulped loudly as Silvertongue turned towards him. Isn't that right, Jetstream? Oh, but where are my manners? I do believe this whole time you've been waiting to see whether I'm going to give you a second chance. Jetstream warily nodded. Yes, my lord. Silvertongue chuckled darkly. I do applaud your efforts, my boy. I suppose that I wasn't really treating you with dignity, sending a plebeian such as yourself to challenge the likes of such powerful adversaries such as these. It would be unfair of me to consider your inability to even pose a threat to them as a mark against you. Jetstream sighed a breath of relief. Thank you, my lord. Thank you? My dear boy, you think you've earned your second chance? Did I not just say that you failed to pose them as even a modicum of a threat? Had you not been such an incompetent Nimrod this morning, we wouldn't be here now. These six have had more time to train, more time to recover and prepare. And if you weren't such an incompetent Nimrod now, too, you might have made them exert a minimum of effort, made them release their full potential. I don't have time to wait around for them to reach to that point. They need to get moving as soon as possible to catch up with those 6 mares. Your ineptitude allowed them to make quite a distance between us and them. If you can be reminded of such a fact, Jetstream stammered. But I have no use for the likes of such worthless pawn, Jetstream, Silvertongue sneered. His horn sparked brightly and Jetstream was lifted into the air. He turned to the unicorn by his side. Starlight, my dear, I think it's time for your final test. Should those 6 mares prove to be unwilling to cooperate, you will need to destroy them. I would test your resolve to do such an act in the first place. You have proven capable of ripping useless machines to pieces. Now I wish to see if you can do so to a living, breathing creature. Starlight's horn glowed as she took over Silvertongue's and waved her hoof dismissively. Father, such a menial task is really not suited for a mare of my style and power. And besides, I think you and I both know there's some pony else here who would much rather have such an opportunity. Yeah, me! Havocwing bolstered over. Oh, can I, boss? Can I? I just want to rip this useless little wings off and shove him off the roof of the tower. Please, boss? Starlight snorted. Havocwing, you got the lowest score. As punishment for bringing down our collective average, I'm denying you this opportunity. What? The Red Pegasus blurted. Oh, come on, boss. I really want to kill this guy. He's an embarrassment to Pegasi everywhere. Please? I promise Please, Insipid huffed. If anyone should be allowed to kill him, it should be me. Like, totally be me. Havocwing gave a half-lidded, dumbfounded look. What? You want to kill him? Wait, you want to kill him? Cordecio raised an eyebrow. Quelle surprise. Since when? Like, since now, Insipid rolled her eyes. I mean, duh. If Havoc wants a piece of him, I want a piece of him. She should, like, share. But Havocwing has already lost her opportunity, darling. Cordecio chuckled. And besides, Grayscale as Aunt the next highest score. She's the one who should be delivered the Coupe de Glace, don't you think, Grayscale? Grayscale shrugged. I guess that's fine if you say so. Hello? That totally means, like, that it should be me, right? Not little Miss Low Score here. She's, like, so worthless. Buck off! Havocwing snapped. Come on, which one of you wants to say something else about me, huh? I'll kick your flanks the next Wednesday. I'm sure I do not want to insult you, my dear Havocwing, Cordecio smirked. She briefly made her face take on the appearance of Havocwing herself, and in Havocwing's voice, but boy, I sure am an idiot. That's it, I'm gonna... Starlight groaned. I'm surrounded by morons. Red velvet! She snapped behind her. He's all yours. She dropped her spell on him, and took several steps back. Might as well enjoy the show, she thought. The pink pony grinned widely, licked her lips, and took her first steps towards him. Thanks, boss. You have no idea how much I needed this. Please, my lord, Jetstream pleaded. Far too late to beg me for forgiveness, my boy. Silvertongue said icily. Your life is in their hoofs now. I suggest if you want to keep breathing, you ask her. Yes, she said slowly with a widened grin. Come on then, beg. Beg me to spare you. I promise I'll listen. He gulped loudly. Please, Miss Velvet, I don't... Well, aren't you just so polite? She breathed close to his ear. He leapt back a good several feet, wondering how she'd managed to get so close when he'd even seen her walking towards him several feet away. And so skittish, too. I do so love when they're like that. Come on, then. Let me hear it some more. He made to say something, but was at a loss for words. Her voice seemed to be echoing inside his head. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? He yowled as a sharp pain ripped across his side. He looked there in panic. Claw marks? He scrambled away from her again, but she suddenly wasn't where he remembered seeing her. He looked at the scratch again, but it was gone. She was gone. Stop this! He babbled. Please! You don't need to be so loud, her voice whispered from behind him. After all, there's only just the two of us here. He looked around in panic. Now he realized that they were all gone. The room had begun to darken around him, surrounding them with the blackness. Light was slowly draining, being washed away like a vulgar paint upon a wall. Come on now. I want to hear you beg some more. I need to hear you beg some more. Please? My lord, he called out. Please, call her off. I promise I'll... I said, she growled, an echo in her voice. Beg. He continued to try and flee, a fleeting hope that he could escape. Perhaps this was his test. And if he managed to get away, he'd earn the second chance. But every time he managed to reach the edge of the darkness, she was there again, her eyes red with bloodlust and anger. I normally like it when they run, but you're making this so boring. Oh well. A tendril of living blood lashed out and grabbed his neck, dragging him back towards her. Her grin widened as he began to scream. No, let me go! Please! He cried, trying to run towards the only light he could see. The light flickered and died, and his hopes died with it. See, was that so hard? Please, don't! He pleaded. Oh, but I need to. Don't you understand? She pouted. Don't worry. I'll make this fun. The tendrils latched around the other parts of the body and fluttered around him. He shuddered in discontent as they stroked his wings. His blood ran cold. The femur's bones connected to the pelvic bone. Snap! Ah! He screamed. Oh, that's good. Provide a nice little chorus for me. Where was I? Oh, right. Ahem. The pelvic bone was connected to the spinal bone. Snap! The spinal bone's connected... Hey! Ah, shoot, there goes another one. I'm never going to finish that song. Alright, well that was chapter 9. That was rather grim, but that's what the fanfic is supposed to do, I suppose. The new characters are strange. I mean, I can understand Applejack talking French, because, like, her accent is, when she says French, is fancy talk and stuff, but, yeah, I suppose it's... I didn't really understand why Rarity had suddenly turned into a... Well, not Rarity. Rarity's counterpart was sort of like a teenager, but I suppose it's sort of counterpart the sort of polite way of talking, I suppose. But, I really like... I don't know, do I call it... What was the name again? Red Velvet or something? I just want to call her Pinkamena, because, quite frankly, that I like that name better. Hang on, let me try and find... Ah, screw it. I'm pretty sure it was something like Red Velvet. But, anyway, yeah, the counterparts are interesting. I'm looking forward to see how the other ponies deal with them. So yeah, that was, chapter 9. Thank you for watching. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Until then, keep on... I need to take a break. My words are Keep on spreading the magic of friendship, and I'll see you next time.